Welcome back to the official podcast of Volunteering Queensland. Each episode, we travel to regional and remote Queensland and we meet the wonderful people who are doing their bit to keep their communities alive through volunteering. Yes, we're back. It's been a while. Yes, more than a year between episodes. I went and had a baby, which has kept me very, very busy and has been very, very wonderful. But we are so excited to be returning with fresh stories from across Queensland. In other very exciting news, we are welcoming a new member to our team. The wonderful Izzy Coghill has joined the podcast, and I absolutely cannot wait for you to meet her and get to know her in future episodes. But first, and what a way to kick things off, I had the pleasure of chatting with Rhea Lincoln, the 2025 Queensland Youth Volunteer of the Year. And wow, was I blown away by just how much important work she is doing across so many areas while also studying at UQ. Rhea's a vet student, a youth advocate, a climate volunteer, and she's the driving force behind a brilliant project called We Are Not Alone. Honestly, as you'll no doubt hear, I have no idea how she fits it all in. First of all, congratulations on being awarded Queensland Youth Volunteer of the Year. How did it feel when you stepped up and were presented with the award?
Yeah, I was so shocked because I was hearing everyone's bios, and then when they said me, I was like, is that my name? But yeah, I was just so shocked but excited and definitely not prepared for the questions that they asked me on stage. I was like, oh, I have no idea, but no, looking back now, it was just such an honor and so exciting because being in the volunteering space for now over 5 years, it just feels so cool that this is even a thing and that I got to be there. So yeah, really cool.
It's so wonderful that you were recognised for everything that you've done and in such an amazing way. You said it's been 5 years now just of volunteering, or did you start volunteering when you were even younger?
No, so yeah, my volunteering journey only started when I was 14, which was in COVID. So before then, I was just kind of going to school and just kind of doing school extracurriculars. And then when COVID happened, that was really when I kind of kick-started my volunteering journey and kind of my view on the world changed a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
Can I dive a little bit further into that? What happened during COVID that made you change your view on the world and
Yeah.
become someone who volunteers?
Yeah, for sure. So when we were all inside in lockdown. So in my room, school is so much more simple now that it was, we're all inside. So I had so much free time on my hands. I was like, what should I do? So I just kind of started reading into, social and environmental issues. I had always, been aware of things like climate change and, social injustice, but never really known too much about them or whether, every ordinary citizen can have an impact or create change. But no, once I started researching about these issues and watching different young people do interviews, Greta was a huge influence at that time. It was right after the 2019 school strikes. And yeah, all of a sudden became really empowered and inspired to make change, and even not just to make change though, just get involved and see what I can do in my community, because it became very apparent to me during COVID the power of community and how much we need everyone to step up into more of an active citizen role. So I thought, you know what, this is my chance to get started. So I just reached out to a few different organizations to get involved. And yeah, I just loved it so much. So I just continued in all of them.
Yeah, and so you worked with other organisations and got a real taste for it. And then what was your step up into doing something all on your own?
Yeah, I never thought I would step up. I'm still kind of the person who loves to, have direction and guidance and, just be a volunteer and help out and kind of not have that governance role or anything like that. That was not my ideal. And I was very much happy. I love being a volunteer with all the different organizations I'm a part of. It all kind of just came from me just taking every opportunity that came my way. So after I did Itchy, which was the support group with Eczema Support Australia, I also been involved in the Toowoomba Regional Council Youth Volunteers program. And one of my friends in that, who's an incredible advocate, youth advocate, she had recently been a Haywire winner, an ABC Haywire winner, and her story was amazing to read. And then the next year came and applications opened for the ABC Haywire competition. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if this is, the right thing that I should do, or if this is going to be anything. But then, I was like kind of always in the mentality, just give things a go. The worst that can happen is you don't get in, and that's not a big problem. So gave it a go, and then ended up being called that I was a finalist, and I was super excited, and then I was a winner. So I was like, whoa, this is just so incredible. Like, storytelling was something I was never good at. I was not good at English. So it was just a really pleasant surprise that now I was a part of 40 young people in this amazing regional cohort of ABC Haywire winners. And then the next year, so when I was in year 12 in 2023, we went down to Canberra. And again, they didn't really tell us what we were doing there for a week. All I knew was I got to go on a free flight to Canberra and hang out with cool people, but they didn't tell us what we were doing. On the schedule, it kind of just said activity or like speaker. So it was very vague, but it turned out what we were doing was actually preparing a presentation to Parliament about how we can make regional Australia better for young people. So it was a super cool program, and we got split up into different groups, and there was like education, all sorts of different issues that were prevalent in regional Australia. And then I joined the group that was all about disability, health, chronic illness, and neurodivergence, because that was kind of what my story was aligned with. And there were 5 of us in our group, all from different parts of regional Australia, all with very lived experience. And then, we all together came up with the idea of We're Not Alone Day. And that was where this was started in Canberra. And we had 2 days to prepare our presentation. It was very rough. It was like on sticky notes. Like all these members of parliament came, and the ABC stakeholders, and different heads of different organizations like Headspace, and they gave us really positive feedback on our idea. And it was meant to stop there. You're not meant to go back and actually do it, or not that you're not meant to, but it's not really like a common pathway, I guess. But so ABC Haywire is partnered with FRRR, which is a foundation for regional, rural and renewal, and they offer a grant called the Haywire Youth Innovation Grants, which is up to $10,000 for a project aligned with the ideas that we came up at the Haywire Summit. So usually, like different organizations, they'll take kind of inspiration from one of our ideas and then do it in their organization in their town. But I was like, you know what? I think I can do it. So I came back to Toowoomba in year 12, and super excited at this opportunity to apply for funding, which is something I've never done before or even kind of knew was a possibility, especially as a young person. And had to find an auspice organization, which is a little bit tricky, but somehow through a little bit of support found that. And then with the help of ABC staff and Lauren from FRRR, applied to the grant, successfully got the grant, and then found a new team of friends in Toowoomba, as unfortunately the rest of the initial Haywire initiators couldn't really help out because they're at different capacities. So formed a new team in Toowoomba, and then finally did the event in January of last year, which was the first inaugural We Are Not Alone Day. So it was very long story how we got there, something I never expected to do, but it was honestly the best thing that I think I've, kind of just believed in the idea. And it was really, really fun. So that was a long-winded way of saying how we got to here.
No, that was great. That was, like I said to you before we started recording, like Haywire finalist. This huge list of achievements that you have already under your belt. I just am so excited to see where you go in this world. It's so exciting. I want to talk about We Are Not Alone Day, because you just said you had the first inaugural one in 2024. You've had another one since, so there's been 2 now. So you've got another one maybe in January 2026 lined up. What is this? What is this day about? And is it only in Toowoomba?
Yeah, for sure. So We're Not Alone Day, in its original initiation, it was all about tackling the loneliness faced by young people in regional areas who identify with disability, chronic illness, or neurodivergence. That was where, in that initial Haywire group, we identified that that was a huge problem, and there was a real lack of spaces for social connection and that type of relationships building and things like that. So that was the initial idea. So We Are Not Alone Day was meant to help tackle that. So what we did is we kind of created a program where we had a lot of different activities. We had guest speakers. We had Dr. Dinesh Palipana come along, who was really amazing and sharing his story. We had it had a very big community collaborative focus. So we had, Headspace come along, a lot of different organisations in the region who were engaged in the disability space come along. We had a disability youth panel that, showcased the stories of young people with disability in regional areas and, showed the participants that, they're not alone in whatever they're going through, and just kind of showing them that connection's out there. We had advocacy workshops. It was really a mix of everything and anything in the day. We had a donut van, so it was just like a bit chaotic, but like a good chaos on the day. But the main aim was for social connection and kind of along that line of thinking. And then, yeah, basically in 2025, we had another We're Not Alone Day. So very much the same. We had different organisations come along, though, like Animal Instincts Australia, and then we had a craft workshop run by a local advocate and artist, which was super cool. And then we also had a We're Not Alone workshop in the Barossa Valley, which had very much of the same focus, just community collaboration in that region to bring different types of workshops, like creative workshops and other different types of activities. But we're shifting focus now, which is, I think the organisation is very much who's in it, and who is in it has changed over time. So now we're kind of moving away from our We Are Not Alone Day model. We struggled with engagement in the model this year and kind of clarifying what our mission really is. And myself and Caitlin, who's a co-president, have quite a strong background in kind of advocacy and policy engagement with different stakeholders. So we're now kind of moving to a different model under the funding of Backing the Future, which is a different grant that we were successful in last year, which is super exciting. And yeah, so now what we're thinking of doing is more of a model that's innovative and sustainable. So we're really hoping to design a program where 12 young people in regional Queensland can participate in an 8-week upskilling kind of program. So like from different learning and different community stakeholders will come along and present in this digital program. And then at the end of that, kind of host like a mini in-person gathering or summit and connect with, members of parliament and relevant stakeholders to kind of drive systemic change. And then once that program is finished, we're hoping that those 12 young leaders can go back into their community and kind of apply these leadership skills they've learned under We Are Not Alone, and then kind of drive their own projects as well. So we're kind of building capacity in Queensland, but more through a model that is more in line with our mission, which is more now about kind of advocacy and representation and leadership, which is exciting, also very nerve-wracking because, it's always tricky implementing new and change, but we're really excited on this new kind of path we're going down and really excited to see the different regions we can connect in with and, where we'll expand to.
So you're expanding after 2 years, which is just unbelievable. Congratulations. And I hinted at maybe a We Are Not Alone Day next year, but maybe that's not going to be the case. Maybe that'll be the case further down the line with these people who come under your wing and run them in their own towns. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just outstanding, and you must be so proud. You should be so proud if you're not already. Can I talk a little bit about the challenges that you maybe faced as a young person that has led you to want to start something like We Are Not Alone?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of this was written in my Haywire story, but most of it just stems from growing up with chronic illness and what that's like in a regional place and being a person of colour. Very much the intersectionality of identities and how that kind of puts you in a very lonely place and like, oh, does anyone actually understand what I'm going through? That kind of question. And I guess a big part of kind of disability and chronic illness is that most of it is invisible, or that many people don't always see exactly what someone's going through. And that was kind of a big part of my story. And like, I know in one of my ABC articles, I kind of finished with you don't always know what someone's going through. And that was a big part of me going to school. Was I was always, presenting very well, doing well in school, but no one knew what went behind the scenes. So I think for me, it was quite a lonely journey, just kind of going through a lot of health stuff and dealing with all of that, but then also having to kind of go to school every day and pretend that nothing's wrong, or being in lots of pain and just kind of having to sit there in class and, pretend everything's okay. And not being able to speak up about this. It was always something I was very embarrassed about, or like I wouldn't tell people where I'm going if I had to go to these appointments. I'd just be like, oh, I'll be away. I wouldn't really tell anyone, or it was something I just wanted to hide. And I was a little bit ashamed of that I was kind of, having to live a little bit of different lifestyle to everyone else. But then when I kind of wrote my story in 2022, again, I was really kind of almost embarrassed to share it because I was like, oh, now everyone's going to read this. And I think for me, I always think that it's just always been a bit of topic that I've never wanted to talk about, or like, I don't think a lot of us even want to talk about ourselves in general. Like, I hate bringing attention to me or now my story, and especially quite a vulnerable story that many people might be confused. Like, oh, how are you going through this, but then also doing school at the same time? Like, it can be a bit confusing, and there's not a good understanding of, chronic illness or disability or even neurodivergence in our communities. So yeah, that's what drove me. I was like, I have a strong connection to this. I know what it's like to being a young person and kind of navigating life through the lens of, being ill, but also kind of having to meet the expectations of society as well. And, young people are meant to be healthy, and that's what everyone tells you. So it's just a difficult place to be in, but at the same time, there's a really beautiful community as well out there. And yeah, that's kind of my connection, and that's what really drives this project. I always think about, I'm doing this for my younger self. Like, when it gets hard, I'm like, no, I remember those experiences, and like, this is why I'm doing what I do. So yeah.
And through telling that story of your younger self, and being brave and doing that, that's what's enabled you to create these programs that are enabling all this change and creating all this awareness.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is what your younger self wanted, right? So you're studying veterinary science alongside all of this at the University of Queensland, and you recently received their student award at their Women's Entrepreneurship Day. Putting We Are Not Alone just aside for 1 second, what's led you to pursue veterinary science?
Yeah, that is a great question. Actually, I ask myself that question a lot too, because it's actually pretty wild. Like, every day, like, I go to university and have a lecture on animal health or something related to it, and then I come back and have meetings on like topics on social justice and like creating human connections and all these very almost contradicting topics. Sometimes I feel like it's so different. So I always wanted to study medicine when I was growing up, which was very much from my own experiences. Like, I think the whole healthcare field needs reform and needs to be transformed, and I wanted to be a part of that change by being one of those very, a doctor that truly understood the patient and saw patient beyond, the results and the diagnosis and the numbers. And I really wanted to be that doctor for someone else, especially young people and children. However, through my kind of journey of volunteering, I engaged in a lot of like climate change volunteering, environment, wildlife, that side of things as well, that I was very passionate about. And then I realized that actually one of our most marginalized populations in this country is, not those kind of, not humans, it's actually animals that are incredibly voiceless, and they really lack autonomy in their healthcare, or don't even receive healthcare, or are just forgotten about most of the time. Like, we just don't consider them in our government. We don't even have a department of, veterinary health. They're under the Department of Agriculture and Forestry and Fisheries. And, we regard human health so much that we have, Medicare, and where the government subsidizes human health, but we don't consider animals to be of equal to us, and we don't even consider their sentience or their capacity to feel things, even though that's very much what we learn about. Like, when I go to university, I'm always like, wow, dogs, cats, cows, chickens, we're all not that different. We're not that different at all. And that's what really got to me. I was like, they need to deserve the same healthcare that we do, and they have that right just as much as we do. And as much as we fight for, our healthcare to be affordable, we need to fight for their healthcare to be affordable as well. And that's kind of what drove me to go into veterinary medicine, was like, I want to be a veterinarian that actually advocates for the animal patient and ensures that we look after other species, not just humans, because, we all need to coexist on this beautiful planet together, and we can't just have one, humans dominate this world. Like, we need to uplift the health of all species, and that's kind of what drove me towards this profession. And I know it sounds sometimes confusing with all the other things I do, and then vet is just there, but to me it all makes sense in my head.
No, well, that's the most important thing, and we all contain multitudes. There's no point denying that fact. So I think it's just wonderful, and you can tell it comes straight from your heart, as to why you're doing this. You're pretty busy doing that. We Are Not Alone. At the University of Queensland, you're also the student wellbeing representative specifically for students from a culturally or linguistically diverse community. I don't know how you have the time for all of this. I think it's unbelievable. Can you tell me about that role, that student wellbeing representative role? What does it entail?
Yeah, of course. No, I absolutely love that role. So UQ has a specific group that advocates for the health and well-being of CALD or CALD or whatever the acronym, how you want to say it, which is specifically for culturally and linguistically diverse students. And again, that's another huge topic I'm passionate about because every issue has intersections, and racial justice is a huge intersection of every social problem we can think of. And for me, I know accessing healthcare and just racism in Australia is a huge problem and still is, especially in university systems, and even going to regional campus, often that's just amplified. And I think as a nation, we're often scared to talk about racism for what it is, but I think it's really important, and this role helps me talk about that. It's such a beautiful space where, on this advisory council, they've given students who have primary lived experience as to what we can actually do and actions we can take to create university to be a safer and more thriving space for young people and students from different backgrounds. And yeah, I just really love the role. It's a great opportunity to meet other, students from different backgrounds. And it's a good role.
And build a better university, a
Yeah.
university that, lots of people would have wanted to go to many years ago that didn't consider any of that sort of important information that was coming, like you say, from that lived experience. And there's no better place to get that information, is there?
Yeah, of course.
You're also a youth advocate with the Queensland Family and Child Commission. I promise that's the last thing that I know about anyway. It's unbelievable. Can you talk about your work with policy advisors at the moment?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to find out about the youth advocate role, I think about 2 years ago. And ever since then, we, as youth advocates, there's a large youth advocate network all over Queensland, basically engage and consult with different policies. So that can range from the most recent child safe strategy that has just got put out by QFCC, but also the Queensland Girls and Health Strategy 2035, the Queensland Trauma Strategy. Basically, a lot of Queensland bodies will come to QFCC to get primary youth perspectives on, does this policy actually work for young people? And if it doesn't, what can we do better? And it's such a beautiful space because, our time, our lived experience in this space is valued, and it actually gets put into, policy, and something that I really love about that role. So, yeah.
I feel like you're going to graduate and you're going to become a vet, and all these other organisations are just going to be left in your wake, wishing that you were coming to work for them. And the animals are just going to be very happy because they're getting the best. It just sounds like you're doing such wonderful work and you're so across all of it. And I could probably interview you on 100 different subjects. Rhea, as someone who's worked also in various environmental organisations, tell us about the work you were doing there. Which organisations were they, and what are they all doing at the moment, and what are they focusing on?
Yeah, so the Australian Youth Climate Coalition was one of the very first organisations I started volunteering with, and that was back in 2020. So, right after those big school strikes we saw in Australia and the world. And then I also did lots of work locally. So, like with Toowoomba for Climate Action, Darling Downs Environment Council, the, Friends of Escarpment Parks, Wilderness Societies, all the different, like just kind of anything environmental, tree plantings. I was there. I was going at any climate events. I was also definitely there. So I think in terms of what we're doing, so AYCC, the Australian Climate Coalition, is the one I'm still a part of now because I've unfortunately moved out of Toowoomba, so I can't go to a lot of those local events. Our main campaigns really are about no new coal and gas. So that really means we go to a lot of members of parliament or write to them or meet with them in person, and tell them about the stories of young people across our nation, who are often in marginalised communities or identities, and speak about how the climate crisis is not something in the future, it's something happening right now, and we are not doing, we're not doing enough and nowhere near enough. And we talk about not approving new coal mines and new coal licenses, and making sure that polluters pays is a big part of our campaign. And really renewable energy. And it's a really frustrating space to be in, because I think, we keep seeing these new, gas places or coal mines being opened up. And then our Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act is so outdated. It's from 1999, and all the promises that, our politicians who are meant to represent us have quite literally failed over the last few years. So what we're kind of doing is we're like telling politicians to step up and do the role that they signed up for, and really listen to young people, because we're not just young people on our phones, as they kind of look at us to be. We're very engaged. We want to see change, and a lot of the groups I'm a part of, that's what we advocate for, to really listen to us, because this is our future. And we absolutely love the environment and exploring it. It's so beautiful, and we love living and being in our communities and the diversity of our communities. We're home to one of the world's most oldest living cultures, and we want to see that flourish into the future. But that means our politicians need to be doing better in terms of policy and legislation, and meeting global expectations much better as well. So I think we're in such a country that is known for change, and we can make that change. But I think a lot of it's just really down to politicians stepping up and doing the right thing.
And as frustrating as it is it an area that you think you'll continue working in?
Absolutely, because I think climate justice is one of the most foundational concepts to anything, and it's a huge part of veterinary science as well. And I sit there in class and I wonder why we don't talk about it more, but climate change in general in more, because it's really the root of a lot of different issues and has such huge intersections with every social justice issue we're seeing. Heat waves are the biggest killer of people in this country, yet we don't talk about heat waves in geography at school. Or we learn about earthquakes and different things, or we call them natural disasters when they're not very natural at all. So absolutely, I will be continuing this space for as long as I can, because I think it's such an important issue, and that all of us need to be doing a lot better in that space for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your work in that space. It's so unbelievably important. So you're working across social justice, you're working in climate justice, you're working in animal justice. Have you seen any specific crossover or intersection between all three?
Absolutely, and that's what I love about applying this lens of intersectional justice, is that every form of justice is connected, and it really comes from this concept of one health. So if our environment is good, our animals will be good and we'll be good, and it goes all the way back around. If one place is healthy, then if animals are healthy, then we'll be healthy. One of the biggest causes of AMR, like antimicrobial resistance, that we're seeing in humans is due to animal AMR. So if we fix that, then we'll help us. And with our environment, if we have healthier environments, we won't have a lot of the lifestyle diseases we're seeing now that's caused due to things like pollution and living in this very urbanized environment. So absolutely, they're all interconnected, and we need change at every level to really see all of them improve.
I love that umbrella term of one health. I feel like next time we chat, or next time I see you chatting to someone else, at some stage down the future, there's going to be you working under that umbrella. And it is something that we will be so grateful for, because it's the work that needs to be done. And you are just out there doing so much of it, so much of this work. This podcast is about volunteering in Queensland, and we really champion people who just dedicate their time in the ways that you're doing, or in tiny little ways. Maybe they just do half an hour a week of volunteering, two ends of the extremes there. But do you have any advice for anyone who would like to be offering their services, not maybe in the way that you do, or maybe in the way that you do, or in any possible way that they are capable of? If they're sitting on the fence right now, what would you say to someone who you are really wanting to inspire to get out and volunteer?
For sure. Volunteering, I would say the main thing is that it is so fun. And the people who do it are like the nicest people ever, and you get to make the nicest friends. And I would just say, yeah, just go do it. I know a lot of people contemplate it and think about, oh, is this really for me? But I would, say the best thing is that it is so fun, and you're having fun while also making change. And I think those two things together are so beautiful, and what the world needs more of.
The world needs More of it for sure. That's exactly right, Rhea. We are so grateful to have had you on the podcast today. Have I talked about everything that you're doing, or is there something else? Are there other things that you are keeping from me?
There are a lot. I sit on a lot of different positions and have lots of different roles within the uni. But no, like it's, I just love getting involved. Like basically, if there's any opportunity to get involved, I'll usually sign up, and I usually get told, "Oh, no one signed up for it, so here you go." So that's usually where I sit, and in everything I do, though, I have the same values and the same sentiments, and all the different things I learn from different roles, I apply to other roles, and I just absolutely love it. I'm learning every day, getting new perspectives every day, and challenging, people every day too when I go to these meetings that I never thought I would do, because I'm very quiet and very scared most of the time and do feel like an imposter. But no, I do love it, getting outside my comfort zone and just giving things a go.
Well, congratulations on being brave. Congratulations on overcoming that imposter syndrome that I wish I could just take away from you, because you do not need to have it at all, not one tiny little bit. You are not an imposter. You are just running this show, and it's been such an honor to sit with you and talk with you today. I'm so grateful that you came to have a chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been so lovely to be connected with Volunteering Queensland more as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I'll see you next time I'm in Toowoomba or Gatton or Brisbane, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rhea.